Welcome to the deep dive. You send us the sources, we dig in and pull out the key insights so you can get informed quickly and hopefully entertainingly.
That's the idea.
Today, we're looking at some excerpts from a document called 019, Physical Dangers, Needs, and Cautions.
Right. It's essentially a collection of personal stories, reflections, anecdotes from mission trips, mostly set in Honduras.
Yeah, it gives you this really vivid, sometimes gritty picture of what that kind of work involves, the challenges, the surprises, and a lot about faith, too.
Exactly. So our mission today, if you will, is to explore those realities. What's it really like doing short-term mission work in, say, Honduras, based on what this author experienced?
We'll be looking at those unexpected dangers, the, practical problems they ran into, but also the moments of humor, which are quite a few of, actually.
And how faith plays into navigating all of that. It's quite a mix.
Okay, so where should we start? The forced abduction, maybe? That definitely caught my eye.
Huh, yeah. The aliens. It's such a playful opening, isn't it?
It really is.
Basically, their plans changed suddenly, and they ended up being taken from their work site in Balfate to Tella on the coast.
And the hardship involved white sand beaches and the Caribbean Sea.
Tough life, right? But it highlights that contrast, that unexpected detour from the planned mission work.
It does set a certain tone, that ability to laugh about things not going to plan. They mentioned a bird sanctuary with no birds.
Which is pretty funny.
And then this quick, almost throwaway line about a computer chip and hearing strange voices. What was that about?
It's a bit mysterious, isn't it? Like a little surreal detail dropped in before getting back to the more grounded reality of the clinic work.
Right, because they pivot pretty quickly to what they call the busiest day in the clinic yet.
And interestingly, busiest meant seeing 30 patients.
Which might not sound like a huge number to some, but look at the conditions they were seeing.
Exactly. Serious stuff. Hepatitis, congestive heart failure, UTIs, pneumonia, even something called Tsutsugamushi fever, which is transmitted by mites.
It really underlines the different scale and type of health challenges compared to, what many of us are used to.
And the limitations. They mentioned not having an X-ray machine. That's basic diagnostic equipment we often just assume is there.
And even if they had one.
The electricity was unreliable. So yeah, major constraints.
That reliance on, or lack of, basic infrastructure is a theme. Then this big work team arrives from Michigan. 22 people.
No luggage.
Right. Straight off the plane. Talk about a welcome.
The author calls it a Honduran test, which seems fitting. You just have to roll with it, adapt immediately.
This team sounds incredibly motivated, though.
Oh, yeah. The author describes them as working nonstop. Like they were so keen they had to be told not to throw away valuable stuff by accident.
Just eager to help, I guess. But managing a big team like that, with different skills.
Dentists, nurses, construction folks. It's a logistical challenge, making sure everyone's utilized well.
Thankfully, the luggage did show up eventually.
Yeah.
Small win.
Yeah. A little relief there.
Then, after that initial flurry, there's another clinic day focused on really serious heart conditions.
Patients with multivalvular rheumatic disease, a ventricular septal defect, or VSD, people who traveled a long way hoping for help.
These are complex conditions. Rheumatic disease affecting multiple heart valves, a hole between heart chambers, requires specialists, often surgery.
And that's the tough part. The mission team couldn't offer that level of care. They had to turn people away.
That must have been incredibly difficult.
Especially for the dentist on the team. The author mentions his sadness at having to pull teeth that, back home could potentially have been saved with more resources.
It highlights those really stark ethical decisions you face in these situations, what you can do versus what you wish you could do.
Absolutely. A heavy reality.
But it wasn't all heavy medical situations. There's this trip to La Ceiba that they describe as being like Disneyland.
Yeah, which is quite a comparison.
Yeah.
But you have to understand the journey to get there.
Right. It wasn't exactly a smooth ride.
An hour over bumpy dirt roads, crossing rivers, dealing with, shall we say, assertive drivers.
So after that, arriving in a town with paved streets.
A grocery store, a Pizza Hut, even working stoplights. That felt like Disneyland.
The stoplights, they mentioned the red, yellow, green lights being almost amazing.
It just shows how your baseline shifts, doesn't it? Things you wouldn't even notice normally become remarkable.
Totally. Your whole perspective changes.
Then the narrative shifts back to a health concern, but this time within the team. Emily from the Michigan group.
She developed cellulitis, right? a skin infection.
Yeah, and the author lists all the potential sources: wading in dirty water, working in dusty conditions. It emphasizes how constant the exposure risk is.
And it sounds like it got pretty serious. They considered sending her home.
They did. It was a real worry. But thankfully, antibiotics, rest, and as the author notes, prayer seemed to do the trick. She recovered.
A relief, but also a reminder of the risks involved just being there and doing the work.
Definitely. Health is precarious.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. Maybe do something lighter. The Bug Book.
Oh, yes. Mr. Bug is your friend. That was brilliant.
So creative and funny. Just the chapter titles alone.
Bugs that could eat a small mouse.
Bugs in the Granola. Classic.
And the appendices, documenting Judy's screams and her often failed attempts at bug control.
Such a great way to acknowledge a real, everyday nuisance.
Yeah.
The bugs were clearly everywhere, but to do it with humor.
Totally. Finding the funny side of the infestation and the ideas for sequels. Mr. Bad is your friend.
Mr. Sandfly has fun when Leon is in town. Just gold. It shows real resilience, I think, to find humor like that.
It does. And speaking of resilience, we see that resourcefulness again with the dental team.
Right, working with no power at all.
No main power, no generator power, just nothing. But they carried on.
And the description of their joy when the lights finally came back on.
You can just imagine it. Suddenly everything's easier. It highlights that need to adapt, to make do when the basics aren't guaranteed.
Like you said, making do.
Then there's this bit about driving up a mountain well, being driven up in air conditioning, as the author jokes.
Yeah, playing down the effort, but still painting this picture of incredible views.
Phenomenal views. But even up there...
Mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Can't escape them. A constant reminder of the environment.
Exactly. Beauty and pests side by side.
The tone shifts again, though, with a really quite tragic story.
The 35-year-old woman with complete heart block.
That one really hits hard. It brings those ethical dilemmas into such sharp focus.
It's a condition where the electrical signals in the heart are blocked, slowing the heart rate dangerously. Treatable with a pacemaker, relatively straightforward in many places.
But not there.
Not for her. The cost of the pacemaker, the difficulty and expense of traveling to the capital city, Tegucigalpa, the long waiting list even if she got there.
Yeah.
Just barrier after barrier.
And she's a mother of 8 with no husband. The injustice of it is just overwhelming.
The author's frustration comes through so clearly, knowing the treatment exists but is completely out of reach because of the system, because of poverty.
It really underscores those huge global inequalities in healthcare and the helplessness mission teams must sometimes feel.
Yeah, confronting needs you simply can't meet.
So the author reflects on all these difficulties. The heat, being remote, sickness, lack of resources. It sounds incredibly tough.
It does, and yet they also mention how hard it was to leave, despite everything.
Which leads into that central theme that keeps popping up, doesn't it?
God is in control. That seems to be the anchor. A statement of faith, a way of coping, maybe when faced with situations that feel overwhelming or unjust.
It's not just stated, though. It's illustrated with some pretty incredible stories.
Yeah, these anecdotes where, medically speaking, things looked impossible. A woman with terrible bed sores in Mexico City, a doctor in the Philippines needing basically everything, a paralyzed girl in Guatemala, a child near death in Honduras.
And in those moments, prayer was presented as the main or only course of action left.
It shows faith operating in these really extreme high-stakes situations, when human resources are exhausted.
Like the mention of hospitals in North Korea with empty medicine boxes.
A very stark image. Hope in the absence of actual medicine, almost.
It's not all smooth sailing with people, either. There's that story about navigating cultural differences, or maybe just personalities. The missionary host of the clinic.
Ah, yes. The enthusiastic announcement. Telling everyone waiting, a huge crowd, that everyone would be seen no matter what.
Which sounds nice, but apparently created near chaos.
Understandably, it set up unrealistic expectations. The author describes praying for wisdom in that moment, how to handle it without undermining the host but also managing the situation. A delicate balance.
It requires real sensitivity.
And then, amidst all the need and chaos, you get these really beautiful moments of connection and reward.
Like the little girl in Mexico City.
Oh, that story is wonderful. The team treats her ear infection, a simple act for them, probably.
And she comes back later with a gift. A little toy rattle.
Her way of saying thank you. From a child who likely had very little, the author says they kept that rattle for years.
You can see why. It's such a powerful symbol of gratitude and human connection across cultures and circumstances.
Absolutely. But the author also stresses something else. The importance of standards.
Right, not just showing up, but doing good work, whether it's building, painting, or medicine.
Because poor quality work or using unqualified people can actually damage the reputation of mission work and be a negative witness.
They mention a specific ministry that got banned from Honduras for that reason. Unqualified medical staff, no follow-up care.
Yeah, serious consequences. And even seemingly minor things they mention being chided by the UN in Rwanda for organizational issues.
It shows you need to be professional, respect local rules and standards wherever you are.
Definitely. It's not just about good intentions.
Alongside the planning, though, there are these moments of pure spontaneity, almost like grace.
Like the unexpected upgrade to first class on a flight to India. A nice little perk.
A very nice perk. And then Jim's prayer. That seems almost audacious.
To meet Mother Teresa. Yeah, it sounds like a real long shot, doesn't it?
Complete.
But then it happens. At the Calcutta airport, of all places.
And facilitated by this other traveler who just boldly goes up to her security. Incredible.
It's one of those stories that makes you think about faith, coincidence, and just the unexpected turns life takes.
Speaking of unexpected turns, that rental car story in Honduras.
Oh, boy. That one's a nail-biter.
They get what looks like a new car, but
Internally, it's falling apart, and the brakes fail while they're driving in the mountains.
terrifying. Having to steer into an embankment to stop the car, I can't even imagine.
It's pure survival instinct kicking in.
And then, after surviving that, they get hit by another car at a gas station.
Adding insult to injury, right. And initially, they get blamed for it.
But it resolves in this almost bizarrely positive way. The local mechanic fixes everything for next to nothing.
An incredibly low bill, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
suspiciously low.
And then returning the damaged car to the rental agency? They must have been dreading that.
You'd expect a huge bill, lots of hassle.
But the employee just doesn't seem to care, almost waves it off.
It's another one of those head-scratching moments, a roller coaster, like you said earlier, highlighting risk, luck, maybe divine intervention. Who knows? It's wild.
It really is. Then there's the flip side. Not just danger, but extreme discomfort. The night in Puerto Limpiera.
Described as the worst night of the author's life, which is saying something, given the other experiences.
No plumbing, intense heat, mosquitoes just everywhere.
An overwhelming swarm, it sounds like. Unbearable.
And then, to top it off, they get their backpacks stolen from their room.
Ugh. After a night like that, it makes you really consider the physical and mental toll, the sheer unpleasantness they endured sometimes.
And the author asks, what's the purpose in trials like that? It's a fair question.
It is. It pushes back against any idea that this work is romantic or easy.
Food also becomes a recurring theme, highlighting cultural differences and resource limitations again.
83 meals of rice in a row in Aloka. Can you imagine?
I really can't. That takes dedication or desperation.
Sharing one small chicken among a huge group, finding a pig's head in the freezer in the Philippines.
That must have been a surprise for the author's wife.
I bet. And being served pork hindquarters, trying balut, the fertilized duck egg delicacy.
Okay, that one's maybe a step too far for me.
Fair enough. Then there's the iguana feast, which sounds relatively normal after balut.
Maybe. But then the story from Shrumlaya. The deer meat.
Yeah. Finding out later it wasn't exactly deer they'd been eating. That adds a rather unsettling layer to the culinary adventures.
It certainly does. Resourcefulness taken to an extreme, perhaps.
So looking at all these stories, the dangers, the discomforts, the author does acknowledge the risks. Mission trips aren't safe holidays.
But they make an interesting point. Maybe staying home is riskier for those who feel called to go.
Riskier in a spiritual sense, perhaps? Not fulfilling a purpose.
Yeah, something like that. Illustrated by the team member who stayed behind in Chile to finish building something, showing that level of commitment.
But that commitment needs to be balanced with safety and common sense.
Yeah.
The author is very clear on that.
Absolutely. Establishing boundaries is crucial. They warn against team members, especially women, going off alone.
And they share a really disturbing story about a team member being assaulted, which underlines why that warning is so necessary. It's a real danger.
Another key point is health. Making sure team members are actually fit to go and have enough of their own medications.
Because you can't rely on finding advanced medical care easily, especially in remote areas.
And they tell that tragic story of the team member with underlying health issues who sadly passed away while in Honduras.
A devastating reminder of why health screening and preparation are absolutely vital. You have to be realistic about the environment.
Misunderstandings can also create dangers, even linguistic ones. the customs incident in Tegucigalpa.
Right, the author accidentally saying Drogo's drugs instead of Medicina's medicines.
A simple mistake, but it led to arrest, having all their medical supplies confiscated, missing their flight. A nightmare scenario.
It shows how easily things can go wrong in unfamiliar settings, even with good intentions.
But again, there's that strange twist.
The customs chief turns out to be a Cristiano, a fellow Christian. And this weird, possibly fabricated connection through a pastor's daughter somehow smooths everything over.
Another one of those unpredictable, almost surreal resolutions.
Life is stranger than fiction sometimes, right?
Seems like it, based on these accounts. They also witnessed humanity at its extremes. The description of Rwanda during the refugee crisis.
Horrific, seeing that level of brutality and casual disregard for life firsthand.
Yet, the team itself remained safe amidst the chaos.
A stark contrast, highlighting the precariousness of their situation.
It wasn't always external dangers, though. Sometimes the risks were self-inflicted.
You mean Charles and the Burger King incident?
Yeah. The teenager on the youth team in Guatemala City just darting across a super busy road without looking, desperate for a burger.
He nearly got hit by a car, a moment of pure impulsiveness that could have ended tragically.
But the author notes that despite that lapse in judgment, the trip had a lasting positive impact on his life.
It's interesting, isn't it, how these intense experiences, even the scary moments, can be formative.
Which brings us back to planning, maybe. The absolute necessity of thinking ahead.
Definitely. Especially regarding emergency medical care and evacuation plans. You have to have contingencies.
They mentioned the orientation they got in Rwanda from Operation Blessing, which included what to do if political unrest broke out. Very thorough.
And they contrast that with another team in Honduras that didn't plan adequately for safe travel, riding unsafely in the back of a truck, leading to serious injuries and even deaths.
A really sobering example of why planning isn't optional. It's critical.
Another important point about interacting with the local situation is respecting the long-term missionary.
Right. Not coming in as a short-term team and starting up new programs that the long-term folks can't possibly sustain after you leave.
Unless they specifically ask for it, of course. It's about partnership, not imposing your own agenda. Good advice.
And finally, there's that atmosphere near the conflict zone. Trumlaya again.
Yeah, the tension near the Contra conflict in Nicaragua, you can feel that heightened awareness, the underlying danger.
And then that completely bizarre event, soldiers just starting to shoot wild pigs right in the middle of the village.
Chaos. Bullets flying, people diving for cover, with seemingly no regard for the civilians nearby.
It's just another layer of the unpredictable, sometimes dangerous reality they were navigating.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it? All these different facets.
So, wrapping up this deep dive into physical dangers, needs, and cautions, what's the big picture? It's clear these mission trips are, well, intense.
They really are. A complex mix, like we said, significant challenges, unexpected twists and turns, but also these moments of profound human connection and a strong undercurrent of faith.
So for you listening, what are the key takeaways here?
I think, first off, the absolute need for adaptability. Things will go wrong, plans will change, you have to be flexible.
Definitely. And a real understanding of what resource-limited actually means day to day. The impact on healthcare, on basics like electricity.
Yeah, grasping those stark realities. Then there's the power of connection, that gratitude showing up in unexpected ways, like the rattle.
That was lovely.
And, critically, the need for careful planning and safety protocols. Good intentions aren't enough. Preparation is key.
And underlying it all, at least for this author, is that recurring theme of faith as a source of strength and perspective in the face of, well, everything.
That reliance on something bigger when faced with the unknown or the overwhelming.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with. How do these stories, this blend of hardship, humor, resilience, faith, how do they challenge your own ideas? Your ideas about comfort, about what's necessary, about how you handle life's unexpected detours.
Whether you're on a mission trip or just dealing with your everyday life back home, what does it really mean to be prepared, not just practically, but mentally, emotionally, for the unpredictable world we live in? Something to mull over.